This is Lewis Hart for Boxing Social in association with Empire Fight Store and Forged Irish Stout. Delighted to be joined with the former WBO Cruiserweight World Champion, Johnny Nelson, MBE. How's things, mate? How are we?
We're good. We're good. It's nice to be back down in Bournemouth. Love it every time we come down here. So yeah, hope we're back down again soon.
We're trading like sunglasses for woolly hats this time, aren't we?
You know what? I actually, Chris Billam-Smith, he switched promotional camps so we could get boxing down here in Bournemouth. What a great move it was. And now I think it's his third fight in now, and tickets are sold out. You can't get tickets. They could sell tenfold, and it's a good vibe. It's good to. And we used to do this back in the day. We used to travel all over the place putting shows on, and to come to Bournemouth and put the spotlight, the razzmatazz on in Bournemouth. It's nice no matter what the weather is. So. This is why I was kind of, I'm kind of thinking, why? Because this is a tough fight that Chris has got, and if he loses, you know, does it halt the progression as he's come back down here again? It's a tough fight. I ain't gonna fool you. I'm not gonna say he's a done deal. I think, why would you pick Masternak as your first defence for world title? Now I understand for Chris, if you're a world champion, you're gonna think I'm the best fighter in the world. I'm fighting everybody I expect to win. And usually the playbook is you win a world title, the first defence is the kind of soft touch, second defence is when you're going to do your mandatory, get into the hard one. Masternak is the guy that you only fight if you have to fight him. He's a handful. He's come over cocksure of himself, thinking that he's going to go back to Poland as a world champion at last. He'd never been off his feet, even when he got stopped on his feet. So this is has got to be a career best performance from Chris. And the last two fights have been tough, wearing fights, and so I concerned about that. I thought, come on, give me a soft touch. This ain't no soft touch. So in the same way I'm saying, this is a hard fight for Chris Billam-Smith. It's a fight that's so hard. Is actually if he wins, it's going to be such an underrated win because people don't realise how much of a big deal this is. This is the best opponent Chris Billam-Smith has been in with. This is the best opponent. Tony Benn boxed him into 2015-16. You know, this is the best opponent out there for Chris Billam-Smith. And I thought, I've got to give him props. And if he pulls it off, I've got to give him massive props because he'll have risen in confidence and stature and self-belief. And so he turns that on, then you know what, good on him.
Is there something that also Chris has to be careful of? Because, as you say, how tough Masternak is, there's also, after this fight, there is massive potential domestic fights in the pipeline. Richard Riakporhe was a name that's talked about. He had a fight sort of 3 weeks ago, sort of called out Billam-Smith, said he's going to smoke him, he'd knock him out. Is there something that Billam-Smith has to be careful of? Because Masternak, as you said, he's no soft touch at all. And with what potentially could lie after this, you know, Billam-Smith has to be careful that he's not overlooking it.
Billam-Smith, he now has to assume the responsibility of a champion, which is, as a champion, you've got to deal with any oncomer that's had a year, 6 months, whatever, to prepare for you. The responsibility of a champion is you've got to devise a game plan to beat them inside the space you've been given. Because you can't be watching every fighter, having a game plan for every fight, because you don't know who you're going to fight next. So I say it was 6 weeks' notice, 10 weeks' notice, that 10 weeks to prepare for a man that's been focusing on him because he's a world champion since he's won the world title. So this is the responsibility of a champion. Is Chris mature enough to accept that responsibility? I think fighting at home is the kind of pressure he wants, needs. He has the size, he has the stature. He's tough as old boots. Masternak is tough as well. So will a good big and beat a good little one? I heard somebody say he's the cruiserweight version of Vladimir Klitschko. I think he's a good cruiserweight version of Vitaly Klitschko. Yeah. You know, he's strong, he's tough, he's proper on it, and I think this could make him either shine or be a complete nightmare for him.
And with Riakporhe being the mandatory weight-in, also with Boxer, with Sky, is that in the future an exciting fight? I spoke to Chris yesterday about it, and he was like, you know, he sort of said, "Oh, I beat Brejon 2 years ago." He said they were bound to meet again, and I'm sure Riakporhe, he might be there on Sunday, eagerly watching it. So is there excitement for that fight potentially in the future?
Yeah, without a doubt. You've got to remember, both fighters have matured since they last boxed each other. Both fighters are different animals, different mindset. We saw Riakporhe in his last fight, and at last he's turned into a hunter. he's going for the meat, he's going for blood when he fights, and that was against that opponent. So he needs to adopt that against every opponent he gets in with, and in doing that, you're going to see a completely different fight with Chris and with Richard Riakporhe. So again, I think it will be just exciting as it was the first time before when they fight. That's if Masternak doesn't win, because if Masternak wins, I think then he fights Lawrence Okoli. And Lawrence Okoli's back in the picture. And you've got to give props to Lawrence Okoli for stepping aside, for letting this happen. Because in reality, Lawrence Okoli said, nope, it's the rematch, it's me. So Lawrence has stepped aside and done what he's done. So you've got to give him props for that.
Another thing I did want to touch on is when we talk about Bournemouth there, how nice of an area it is. When we go to places like Bournemouth and Sky goes to places like Wolverhampton and things like that, it isn't just about Billam-Smith, it's also the talent on the undercard as well. We see Louis Edmondson here, other fighters on the undercard as well. Is it important that there's also that shine towards the undercard? It's not just Billam-Smith?
Of course, because and you know what, yesterday we did a public workout and they had an amateur squad in the ring, getting a chance to show their loins, show what they can do, and again it's about creating opportunities for those behind you, creating opportunities for the small hole fighters that probably wouldn't get seen, wouldn't get spotted, hoping to get the call to be on a show. So I think Boxer and Sky doing this, putting shows on everywhere and anywhere, in the least expected places, it may get scoffed at initially, but in reality, you know, if you're talking about bringing boxing back to grassroots, this is what it's all about. You're talking about bringing boxing back to a situation where people see, you know, the talent that they probably wouldn't see. This is it. So you're getting what you want.
Absolutely. Moving on. Speaking to Damon Khan from Seconds Out, Eddie Hearn was talking to him after the fight in Belfast. Was talking about a conversation between himself and Jarrell Miller. Obviously, yourself was in the middle with AJ and Miller when they had the face-off. Eddie spoke about the words that him and Miller had, saying Miller said that when he's next in New York, he's going to pull up on him. Things like this. What did you make of sort of the whole conversation between the two and the bad blood still being there 4 years on?
Between AJ and Miller?
The whole camps, AJ, Miller, Eddie and Eddie, well, Miller v everyone.
I've said it yesterday, I said it before. I think I rate Eddie. Eddie knows boxing, he's grown up with boxing folk. Eddie was a young man, you know, he'd be in training camp with the likes of Herbie Hyde and Paul Silky Jones, you know, he'd be sitting down, he'd be lunching with these boys. He'd been in boxing since 11 years old. So if you think that Eddie's just some little posh boy that don't know boxing, he knows boxing. He knows boxing bullshit. He knows when someone's trying to bully, he knows someone trying to talk big talk. And we can all talk big talk, it's not very often we back it up. Eddie might not be able to back it up, but Eddie gave what he was given. And Jarrell Miller's thinking, shit. There's a difference between Eddie and most of those guys. Eddie will talk the talk, and because he's thinking, yo, we don't have to do that. I think Jarrell Miller realised, you know, when he's dropping that on Eddie, he's wasting his breath because Eddie will twist you up and make you look foolish in his response. In regards to AJ and Miller, Miller knows AJ will not be as much of a trash talker, fast talker, in-your-face kind of guy. So Miller was the one dogging AJ. Like he dogged Wilder. Wilder was in that press conference. He was cool. He was on point. He proper grew in my estimation. I thought, you've grown, man. You've grown. You've matured. Whereas AJ, the side to AJ that we saw is actually the side we need to see from AJ, because he was in a room full of egos just as big as his. That didn't pander to him, as in different promoters of different fighters. So now he's in a room where his back's against the wall. He's now got that hunter's mentality. He's now pissed. So and that's what you want from him. This is what you want. So because that'll transcend into his fight. AJ's very correct. You know, I know people are sick of hearing this conversation about AJ. And you're asking me the question, but I think it all pans in AJ's favour in regards to what character it's bringing out in him.
Because that's being said, because people were talking about, especially when it comes to the Wallin fight, there might be some effects with sort of mentally for himself. Because everyone always talks, like I said, the question about AJ's mental, where is he at? It's a question that everybody always asks, and it's such a topic of conversation all the time. And people were talking about, you know, on the 23rd of December, when Wilder's there, when Miller are there, you know, it's going to be vocal on fight week. People were talking about how that. Do you think that could affect AJ in any way with what you're saying there, or is it a point where he says, don't care?
Affecting him in a positive way, as far as I'm concerned, in a positive way. So if it makes him, you know, retract and think fight or flight mode, good. Because when you've got to fight, you're going to fight differently. You're going to fight more instinctively. You're going to fight with a bit of spite. Bit of fight. So yes, of course it will affect him, but in a positive way in the long run. So and he might not be comfortable being put in that position, but that's where you need to be successful. You need to be uncomfortable, get used to being uncomfortable, get used to being in that sort of position. So to me, I think it's all good.
Speaking on the topic of Wilder, he was sort of saying that Eddie doesn't really want him to fight, doesn't really want AJ to fight Wilder. Eddie could always talk about it, but do you feel like perhaps where AJ would want to fight Wilder, maybe guys in his team would do you think they might? Do you think there's evidence that sort of the past few years where it hasn't happened, that's been AJ so him steering away from the fight?
So whatever AJ's, the difference in appetite is evident with AJ and the team around him. Listen, Eddie's a businessman. You know, he wants to get longevity out of his fighters in AJ. AJ's a fighter. AJ wants to fight Wilder. I don't doubt that for a second. Fighters want to fight each other. They show there's business, and the business side of it said, no, we're trying to. So Eddie may just slow time that confrontation between those two fighters because it doesn't suit his agenda. But for AJ, as far as he's concerned, AJ wants to fight. So fans don't get mixed up saying AJ's running scared of Wilder. He ain't. It doesn't suit the business model of the people promoting, but the fighter himself, trust me, he wants that fight. AJ wants to fight everybody, but sometimes you've got to make this. Sometimes people are behind saying we've got to sometimes lose a battle to win a war. So I kind of agree with Wilder, but don't put this on AJ. That's not AJ. You know, that's Eddie. And Eddie, you know, he won't say that, but come on, you've got to use common sense in that.
Absolutely. Moving on to another topic. I know last week we did touch on the topic of Conor Benn's licence as being rejected. Speaking to further people about it, doing interviews with further people, many people have came out and said that in the history of people failing drug tests, in the history of drug tests, Conor Benn's being treated differently to everyone else. Do you think that's the case? He's been the board have treated him unfairly or treated him differently when it compares to other people who failed tests?
Conor Benn has decided to be stubborn in regards to his protesting his innocence. The board said at the end of the day, you failed 2 drug tests. If you have evidence, let's see it. You've not shown us anything that makes us want to change our opinion, no matter how much you protest. And so when they're saying he's been treated differently than anybody else because he's saying I didn't do it, but there's 2 failed tests, so he's sticking to it. Most people accused of this will say, all right, then you know what, I'm going to take the ban. I didn't do it, but I'm going to take the ban. You're out of order. Whereas Conor is continuing this. Personally, I think Conor should just bite the bullet, take his ban. It would have been a year into his ban by now. It would be a 2-year ban or whatever. Take his ban and get on with his career. So pride now is affecting his development because now Conor Benn, all you're talking about is the drugs. Whereas Conor Benn's actually a good developing young man, a young fighter. But this is now affecting his legacy. It's making it worse because it's like paying somebody off when they're trying to sue you just to kill it. You know, there'll be uproar once you pay them off, but then you can get on with your career. Conor Benn's dragging this out. You know, and so he's affecting his own career long term by dragging this out because the board is saying, look, this is what we're doing. So unless you prove otherwise, this is what we're sticking to, no matter what you say. I get it. You didn't do it. As far as you're concerned, you didn't do it. I get it. Now, I'm telling you now, not until he's 40 years old, he's going to look back and think, shit, man, I wasted 2 years of my career, my development as a fighter, fighting a fight that really, sometimes it's better to lose a battle and win a war. But this is Conor's show, that's what he wants to do. And listen, I'm a fan of Conor's, you know, but I'm also a fan of boxing. And so unless, whatever, because at the end of the day, if Conor wants you to believe him and ignore the 2 failed tests, that means the board have got to do that with everybody else. So how does that affect our sport? So unless, if Conor's got evidence to prove it, show the evidence. Don't tell me you got it. Show the evidence. Then done. Then move on. And so really, you can't blame the board, you can't blame the public for saying, well, this is the case. You're saying, believe me or your lying eyes. What is it to be? So Conor's got to understand that. So, and I understand, you listen, he'd be pissed a lot of people in boxing for not standing by him. And I get it, but you've got to look at the bigger picture. I like Conor, you know, I'm a big respect for his pops. I like Conor, look, I'm a massive fan of Conor, but at the end of the day, he failed 2 drug tests. And unless he proves otherwise, nothing changes.
with you saying there, do you feel like with this whole situation that's gone on and it being such a topic of conversation, causing so much stress on different parties? You mentioned in there about Conor will look back on his 40 and maybe maybe the board, Hearn, everyone that, and they'll look back once this situation done and dusted. They'll be like, why did we waste so much time on it?
That's exactly the point. That's the point I'm making, and I just think, Conor, man, you're a good developing young man, and you put bums on seats. You can fight, man. Now I get that. Put pride on the shelf, man. I think, you know what? Take your licks. You're not getting banned for life. Take the ban and move on. If you ask the bar, you say, you know, I didn't do it, but I took the ban because I want to fight. I cherish my career. Common sense. And right now he's a young, fiery man. He's saying, I ain't doing that. And again, I'm telling you, when he gets older, I think I wasted a valuable development time in my career.
And when further mentioned, Eddie Hearn talked about the sanction under the PBA. I know we spoke about before and said that talked about the board would place sanctions on that, and the board have spoke about placing sanctions on that. Do you feel like with the power that Hearn has and the money that's behind Matchroom and the shows that they put on in the UK, the board would be reluctant because the board could be reluctant with?
This is where you're getting mixed up. Eddie is a massive promoter with a massive pull in promoting fighters and promoting boxing. He's not boxing. Boxing was here before Eddie. Boxing will be here after Eddie. And you can put a lot of public pressure on, in regards to hoping the board relent and go the way you want to go. The board also need to understand they were here before Eddie and they'll be here after Eddie. And if they want to exist and have the respect they've had in boxing, even though sometimes it's waivers, they cannot be seen to be influenced or persuaded or cajoled into changing their opinion by any promoter. And so again, like you say, if Eddie puts on enough pressure and he's got enough power to make him do that, this will only be to the detriment of a British Boxing Board of Control, which will be the beginning of the end for them. So they can't. Even if they want to, they can't, because it sets precedent.
Absolutely. Johnny, I just want to say thank you for taking time to speak to me. Always good to catch up with you. Appreciate it. And yeah, have a good time in this lovely seaside town, mate. Thank you. Cheers.
Anytime.
Good man. Thank you.